Hey y'all, it's Holly. So finally, the moment y'all been waiting for, ranking all four of the Pierce Brosnan Bond movies. So this one was difficult for me because a lot of them are like really close for me. And it's gonna sound like I'm kind of nitpicking, kind of just being contradictory with some of these, but I'm going to try to do my best to explain the ranking on this one. Um, but before we get into any of that, please, 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 it'll do me a huge favor, and the channel a huge favor. Um, if you subscribe, if you like the video, leave a comment, share it, all of those things. They do help a lot, especially now with how YouTube's handling things, where like views from if you use ad blockers don't count apparently. So please, it will help. Also, if you want to turn off ad blockers just to watch me and some of your favorite people, that will help them too. Anyway, um, so uh, these all of these are really close, but the last two are super, super, super close, and it comes down to two things. One thing, really, is characters. Um, I had to make the decision of whether or not I wanted fun characters more or like more interesting characters, like storylines and arcs and stuff. And I feel like the arcs won out. So unfortunately, to all of those fans, um, number four for me is GoldenEye. Um, yes, GoldenEye ranks below Die Another Day for me. And I'll get to why on that one in particular. But if you see my video, like the last one, you would understand pretty much why. But GoldenEye, it's a mix of things. One, I found a little bit of disappointment after seeing it all the way through. Like I've seen it probably all the way through, but it's been forever. Um, but I think the thing this really only had going for me was Boris and Onatopp, played by Alan Cumming and Famke Jensen, respectively. Um, those two characters saved it, and they were incredibly entertaining. And sorry, I'm going to be doing this a lot, but because I can't remember her name. What's her name? Natalia. Natal- Natalia. Okay. Even Natalia, she was really good too, but I feel like it did set up some stuff, especially like Bond and M's relationship, but it was brief. Like their introductory scene with each other where she's like, your ways are getting old. You can't be the womanizer anymore. I'm not really a fan of how you handle things. And he's already like, yeah, I've heard how you handle things too. Um, like it doesn't really get paid off until near really the end of his run, in my opinion. But for me, it's gonna sound bad, but I was honestly kind of like zoning a bit because it was just a mix of like I really wasn't interested because Sean Bean as the main villain as Alec Trevelyan wasn't grabbing me. There was a lot more I feel like could have been done with his character, and it's one of those things where like this, and it's a reoccurring thing for me with a lot of the Bond movies, is pacing. It felt like there could have been a lot more on the actual like character, like Alec, Alec, and Bond, like earlier on, set up that maybe, or even like stuff with Bond and M, like kind of stuff setting up characters and things. And the action was good, especially the tank scene in Moscow, but in Moscow? Yeah, whatever. The tank scene was good, but it beyond that and the two henchmen, there's not much for me to be like, oh yeah, no, this is a top Bond movie. Like, as I said in my initial review, I feel like the love for it is partly nostalgia for people who grew up on it, and love of the video game. I think without the video game, I don't think this would rank as high for a lot of people. Like, they would still be like upper mid tiers for sure. This is by no means saying it's a bad movie, but I feel like it's just gotten that status because of the game and the people who grew up with it. Um, it just like generally didn't grab me. I found the plot like Alec. I'm Southern, so I may say Alec. uh, playing a little silly and like, okay, so your parents were killed. So now you're just like it's very similar to like if they did Drax's like book Drax, but without the intrigue because we don't see him very much. Um, but yeah, like I said, I think like you get the hints of Bond and M's relationship, and then the very fun, like really good henchmen save this. Beyond that, I feel like it just would have been a boilerplate Bond movie. So unfortunately, number four is GoldenEye. Um, just beating it out um, is World's Not Enough. So World's Not Enough does have similar issues where the plot and stuff is kind of boilerplate, and Denise Richards is a worse Bond girl than Isabel Scornajenko, Natalia. Like she is a worse Bond girl, but like she's also a very stereotypical Bond girl. Like she's better than him. Like she's like if she was in a Moore movie, she would be like upper Moore or upper Connery, for sure. Like she actually has more to do, but she's not there for very long. She appears in the middle and like doesn't do a whole lot. I think, like I said in my initial review of World, is the thing that holds her back is really just Denise Richards' acting. Like she just doesn't seem to be able to do it. It's not so much the character or the writing; it's just her, and that's unfortunate because the character could have been interesting. Um, but the things that really elevate it for me above GoldenEye is Bond and M. Not only relationship, but like them grappling with the darker selves. M, her regret over how she handled Elektra's initial kidnapping and stuff. Um, and then her shock about Bond's coldness, because like within her introduction to GoldenEye, she's more on the accounting side, as they call it, rather than the spies, like the mission side. And then like Bond's coldness to killing Elektra is like, okay, this is classic Bond. This is like dark Bond. And then the two characters of Elektra and I guess he goes by multiple names. So what is his name? Renard. Renard and Elektra are both incredibly interesting villains. Um, I would say I wish Renaud got more to do because of his like the brief glimpses of him. Like you can tell, like he wants to die, and like, but he wants to die in a certain way, like whether it's for Elektra or like maybe against a good villain, like or a good um, counter. Like he'd be fine dying against Bond. That'd be cool by him. Um, But yeah, you can tell like the part that really sealed the deal, like, oh, I really like this villain, was his death, honestly, where Bond's like, where he finds out that Elektra died, and Bond's like, and he's like, yeah, there's that bit where he's like, oh, I'm gonna see her when I die. Um, like that was really interesting. And then Elektra being like the not so obvious twist, but obvious twist. But also like it's like, oh, she's like sociopathic, like evil, evil. Okay, that's messed up. Um, because there are people like that, and that really does throw a wrench in the works. Because a very interesting thing with the Brosnan movies, with the Bond girls, is like so you have the like delightfully evil, like takes pleasure in like the pain of others, on a top, and then you have Elektra like saying like, yeah, I use my body and like my mind to pretty much actually seduce and get Ronaldo to my side, because like he didn't really want to do it, I made him do it. Like that's really interesting because you don't really get that from the women like villains. Um, so that's really interesting. I think that's the thing that saved it for me. Posted above is like the relationship and diving deeper into the characters. On top of that, there are some good action scenes. The stuff within the submarine is good, and then the saw blades chopping up the warehouse was fun. That was a fun scene. Seeing Robbie Coltrane come back in a different like not different version of the same character. By that, like he's playing. He goes deeper into his introduction in GoldenEye. Um, it is interesting that I have these two at the bottom because like they kind of connect with each other more so. Um, but it's still number three for me because once again, like besides like the Ronald and Electra scenes, there is a lot of like kind of like puttering about, kind of like okay, whatever. Like I do feel like unfortunately Denise Richards does drag it down, so you get like that middle section is kind of like like not great, not horrible, but not just kind of meh. Um, I did mention this also within my initial review, but like the one scene with Ronald and the two other henchmen in like the Hindu like religious sect area where he grabs the lava stone essentially and like has the guy hold it. That's really interesting. Like that's another interesting bit there, which is like okay, these are interesting villains. This is interesting stuff. Um, but because like there is a large section. It's kind of like, okay, let's get back to the villains. Let's get to this point, whatever. It does drag it down a bit. It does make it third. But on to two. So I debated on this. Like I said, all of these were hard for me to place, but I don't know if I want to go with nostalgia on this because all of these are really close, but like they're close in different ways. Um, so I had it planned out, but now I'm thinking about it while I'm looking at them. I'm like, do I want to switch these at the last moment? Do I really want to make people annoyed? Um, as much as it pains me to put, um, mm, this, oh gosh. Okay, so these two are interchangeable for me, for different reasons. Um, but as much as it pains me, I'm gonna have to put Die Another Day at two. I want to put it at one, but I do have to admit its faults. So if you watched my previous review, you do know that I do love this movie, and it's probably my favorite out of his movies, but I don't think it's his best. Um, but does deal with it deals with like Bond and M's relationship. It's like the capstone to like what they built within GoldenEye, where M's was willing to cut his loss or cut her loss on Bond. And he doesn't like that. Like he's old school. He wanted to be rescued. Like he knew like either A, he would be rescued or B, he would die from his captors. But he wasn't going to do it for himself. The part was like, oh yeah, I threw away the cyanide capsule long time ago. Um, Shows where his mind was at. And like them saying like, oh yeah, you're over the hill, you're done, we moved on from you. He's like, I haven't. But he also is very much aware that like everything has moved on from him. He's probably willing to move on. Like Die Another Day is probably like the more legit end to Bond than No Time to Die. Because this was like, okay, yeah, you get the sense that either Bond, even in the books, is going to retire or die. And I feel like the retirement is much more interesting than just dying. Because a character can die, but a character like Bond retiring is a much more interesting idea. Um, and I think the books do handle that a bit better, but Bond like going back on a fugitive status, essentially being a rogue agent, like how he was in in License. Um, but it goes deeper. Like this one goes deeper into some of the elements that were brought up in other movies. And even like them kind of incorporating all the elements of the different bonds, especially in Q's lab. I was like, oh wow, yeah, we see everything he's gone through. Um, and I brought it like once again, I brought this up in my initial review, but like the title song, including scenes of him being tortured, is different. It's unique. I don't think any of the other ones include like the story so much within the introductory song. The song may not be the best, but the sequence itself is very interesting. Um, but the thing that holds it back, unfortunately, and I do have to admit it, is kind of the cheesiness. Like, I do like the cheesiness, and I felt like this kind of um, colored how I thought more was. Because I always heard when I was young, like, oh, this one's harking back to more. I'm like, okay, so more's gonna be silly, but still a little dark. I'm like, oh no, more's just like old like jokes and just doesn't really hold up very well and very poorly paced. But this one does fix the pacing problems because of the like the zoom ins and the quick cuts and stuff. At least with the establishing shots. Because for some, like for most of the time, you don't need a huge establishing shot for this. It's like, okay, we're in an ice area. Cool, let's move on. Um, the green screening, the overuse of it is bad. The CGI, not the best, but like of the time, sure, whatever. It doesn't last very long. Um, the themes of identity and change and moving on does hit like with the villains. The villains aren't the best, but I do like them still. Like Zhao is very interesting. What they attempted with Moon was interesting. Um, where he was doing this all for like, his country, and like his father doesn't approve. So he's like, okay, fine. I unfortunately have to kill my dad. The weakest villain is Frost, but like she kind of falls in the same camp as Alec, where they don't really go into the character very much at all. But like she gets more development. I feel like than Alec because Alec got like one monologue and that's it. And then he blamed Bond for the like the lab blowing up earlier than he wanted. But it's like okay, but like Bond thought you were dead, so why are you blaming him for that? Um, but even then, like, it feels like I feel like I still should put this at number one just based on how much I feel like this actually is deeper than most people think. But like I said, some of the cheesy dialogue, the slow motions, the bad CGI, the bad overuse of green screening do hold it back. Um, but it is super, super, super interchangeable with my number one. And as of right now, I just have to say, like, in terms of um, overall quality, it may not be my favorite, but overall quality, uh, Tomorrow Never Dies is number one. Like, it's a similar situation where like I have to kind of balance how much I liked the Connery movies, like saying like From Russia with Love is better than um, You Only Live Twice, even though like You Only Live Twice more. From Russia with Love was the better made movie. So I had to kind of go with that, unfortunately. Um, Kind of take out my bias in a way with the number one spot. I didn't do that with More, but More was, whatever. But number one, just barely and interchangeably, is Tomorrow Never Dies. Tomorrow Never Dies is one of those ones where um, just one of those Bond movies, just one of those movies in general. When it starts, I'm already keyed in. I am already invested. Like from the get-go, this feels like a Bond movie. It felt like the introduction, like the opening pre-title sequence. Like I said this in my initial review, it feels much more like a proper introduction for Bond than GoldenEye was. It's like the hiding his face, the them like saying like he's still there. It's like who's still there? Like Bond, like it's Bond, and like it feels more organic. Um, the villain, the main villain at least, played by Jonathan Pryce, is very interesting, very ahead of its time, and still ahead of its time. Like the idea of a media mogul starting a war just so he can be the only one to report on it, and not only report on it, starting to get like the main like streaming or whatever rights in a country. Yeah, I can see that being done now. Like that feels right about right now, with Murdoch, the guy who runs Oracle and Planeteer, whatever it's called. Like you have all these huge media moguls now, like willing to fund wars and other like atrocities just so they can get money off of it because they are paying for it to happen. Um, and like they control the narrative. That's the big thing is controlling narratives. And he's was like within the movie, he's like, oh, how many survivors are left? Okay, let me make sure I get this right. Let me make sure the headline's right. Like all these different things. It's like this is like relevant then, relevant before then, and relevant now. Like this is a very interesting villain. Um, I feel like the only thing that really holds back Tomorrow is maybe some pacing issues, but not as bad as some of the others. But the henchmen hold it back. And I went into this my initial review, but like sometimes, more often than not, you either get a really good main villain and some bad henchmen, or a really good henchman and a bad main villain. It's rare when you get like a good main villain and good henchmen. Um, I feel like really I, honestly, I don't think any of Brosnan's hit that note. I think really the only one that truly hits that note is uh, Live and Let Die and, well, no, there's a few. Live and Let Die, From Russia with Love, and View to a Kill. And even then, Live and Let Die, like the weakest henchman is Whisper, but I'm going off tangent. Anyway, the henchman for what the heck is his name? Price's character's name in this. Carver. Right, the henchmen for Carver are fine. You have one really good one interesting one, more so for the character actor, and then one which that happens when you have multiple henchmen. The one is Stamper, where he's just the main muscle, and he it. I feel like they could have done more with him too, because at the end he's like, "Oh, I'm in, like, how dare you kill Carver? Like he's the greatest man." Blah blah blah. It's like I'm curious of why you have such an attachment to Carver. Like what's the story behind that? It was maybe interesting. Second is like the hacker guy played by uh, yeah, Gupta played by Ricky Jay. Is interesting, but I feel like that's more just Ricky Jay bringing stuff in. For those who don't like recognize him, like he's been in tons of things like Mystery Men, Magnolia, Boogie Nights, um, Prestige. Like he's one of those character actors that's like, oh, that guy, right? So he does bring that kind of vibe that he brings. But the standout henchman is Kaufman, who is also played by a very good character actor, Vincent Chevalier. Hmm. I'm not good with names, but he brings a certain menace to the movie that is very interesting. Like that scene with him and Bond is creepy. Um, and I did hear that, like, I heard there was like a rumor that they wanted to give him his own movie, which would have been interesting. I don't know how that would have played out, but it would have been interesting. Michelle Yeoh as like the main Bond girl, very good. Like you can tell, like it's still early for her within doing English movies. But you know, it's Michelle Yeoh. She's going to be great. Uh, the other really good scene in this. There's a lot of really good scenes, but one of them that like I liked, but you know, it's highlighted by like other Bond people who are better than me at being Bond fans, but like, especially Calvin Dyson pointing this out. But the scene where after Bond escapes Carver's unveiling and he's waiting for Terry Hatcher's character, Mrs. Carver, in the hotel room. There's the bit where like he has the multiple drinks, he's getting the gun ready, all that stuff is quintessential Bond. Like that is book Bond to a T. And he's either waiting for Carver's men, maybe Miss Carver, doesn't know. He's still waiting for whatever. That is like okay, like Brosnan is like probably the second closest Bond to book Bond. Um, the first being Dalton. I mean, maybe even like, oh God, that's tough. I'll get into that one way down the line. But that scene in itself is like, this is right out of the pages of the book. This is really good. Um, like, so I feel like there's less development with Bond's character and M's relationship and all of that within this story, but the overall vibe, the overall like just immediate grab you is the thing that kind of puts it up for me. Like it's overall a better movie. Like it is the best made out of all four, in my opinion. Like overall quality from beginning to end, it's solid. Like you can argue there's certain bits that bring it down, but like I said, like it's mainly just Stamper and Carver's death. Carver's death's a little silly, and Stamper's motivations and like love for Carver is underbaked. Um, but besides that, it all really hits. And besides, this is the only Bond movie where the main Bond girl does not get with Bond. Um, that I can think of. I don't think there's any others that are like that. Like Bond sleeps with Miss Carver, but that's it. Like they had an established relationship, or at least within the course of the movie, they bring it up. But Bond and Wei Lin never do. They kind of hint at it. They kiss each other at the end, But this isn't one where it's like M and Q are like, oh my God, Bond's sleeping with a woman at the end. It's like, you don't get that here. Um, uh, which is very interesting. Um, and well, I mean, this one does also bring in the point of Bond being kind of outdated with the Chinese version of MI6 being like, oh yeah, we updated all of your, improved all of your stuff. Our watches are better. Our tech is better, um, which is fun. Like, so even in this one, like, it does very lightly continue the idea that Bond is outdated. Um, but like I said, overall it's better. I do have to admit that. As much as I like Die Another Day, I have to admit that Tomorrow Never Dies is a better movie. I'm more apt to watch either one of those two again over the other two. Um, and that's where I land. So, as of now, uh, my final ranking, and I'm very upset at any of you because none of you even bothered guessing my ranking, but my final ranking is GoldenEye at 4, World's Not Enough at 3, Die Another Day at 2, and number 1, Tomorrow Never Dies. Those my rankings. Please, please. I want to, love to have a conversation. So please leave your own personal rankings. I'm going to guess it's going to be very different from mine, but who knows? Maybe we connect on some of the other ones. But until then, that's it. On to Daniel Craig.